All right, we are going. So, welcome to the How to Prepare for Your Next Chapter Masterclass. So grateful to those of you who are here live and to those of you who are watching the recording. Welcome. Love having your energy as part of this experience. I was thinking about this earlier. I really feel like the timing of this conversation is super relevant. I know for a few of you, it's just you're here attending this because it's relevant in your own life. But I also just feel like in the world in general right now, the world right now is a place of volatility and unpredictability. And I think, it's like if we ever before thought that we could look to the outside world for any sense of sanity and direction, I think that it is abundantly clear that that is not the case. And I think that that's a good thing for us, because I think that it's really like now more than ever important for us to really activate and awaken our inner compass and really get centered inside of ourselves and really get into alignment with what our hearts and minds and souls and spirits were created for this life for. And so I feel like this is the time to be tuning into our lives, to be paying attention. Where is there a restlessness going on in my life? Where is there some questioning going on in my life? Where am I feeling contracted? Where am I feeling unfulfilled? Because it's highly likely that these are the places that are wanting to find greater and more authentic and more aligned expression in and through you. And so today really is the space. Today is the conversation, the session's the conversation to acknowledge what's coming up for you, whether that's in your relationship, whether that's in your work, whether that's in another area of your life, not as a way to make anything wrong, but as a way to identify where life is wanting to find a more fulfilling, more authentically aligned expression and life affirming expression in you. Can we say hell yeah to that? So yes, pumping the arms up there. So this is what the session is going to be all about today. And I would say you are in the right place. This is for you, really. If you are a woman on a spiritual path, experiencing some area of your life that feels contracted or that feels unfulfilled or just that feels restless, or there's a questioning there. Maybe it's in your work, maybe it's in your relationship, maybe it's another area of your life. And part of you feels the urge to make a change or to have something new. And maybe part of you feels conflicted with that. So, so that's kind of the conversation that we're in right now. And this is probably a good spot for you, good conversation for you to be in if you find yourself kind of in that place of second guessing or wondering if you're just up in your head, or if you're the problem in this dynamic or situation that you find yourself in. Or maybe when you think about making a change, it feels overwhelming, or you get anxious, or it just feels really confusing, or you don't want to make the wrong decision. You don't want to go down a path that's not the right path for you. And so today, I want to really talk to you about the exact tools and strategies that I've used to go from feeling miserable or unfulfilled, contracted in work situations, in relationship situations, in life situations, to really developing the clarity and the capacity and the confidence and the conviction, really, to rise into an infinitely more fulfilling and authentically aligned life. And how that's been sort of something that has happened again and again in my life. Because yes, as life proceeds, we all know, change is inevitable. If you live on this planet long enough, you're bound to get into certain relationships and get out of them, and get into certain, careers or certain work roles and get out of them. This is all it's not our first rodeo right here. But this is really important, is that change is not the same thing as transformation. right? Change is not the same thing as transformation. So when we're talking about change, we're talking about what happens when we react and adapt to life's influences. So these are external influences that we are reacting and adapting to. So change is a passive experience. There's external dynamics that are acting on us and we're reacting to those dynamics. And it also is about improving an existing system. So it's trying to make the best choices and decisions from within a certain circumstance or life experience. Okay. So transformation, on the other hand, transformation is a deliberate internal shift that modifies who we are. An internal shift that modifies who we are. And so transformation is active, and it's about creating a new system. So creating a new way of being and seeing so that your circumstance and life experience is redefined. And so the question that we're going to be exploring today, feel free to write this one down if you want, is what does it take to not be passively reacting and adapting to external influences, but to internally transform so that your circumstance and life experience is redefined? Because it's this inner transformation that's going to produce the clarity and the confidence to shift beyond whatever stuckness or confusion or sort of ambivalence you're experiencing right now, and into a place where you feel the conviction and the capacity to take aligned action. And so this is why I say your unfulfillment isn't a mistake. It's an invitation. And in our time together, you're going to get 3 tools that you can apply that are going to help you gain that clarity and confidence and capacity, so that you can navigate your next chapter and find yourself syncing up with or calibrating to an infinitely more fulfilling, authentically aligned life. Who wants a little bit of that? I want a little bit of that. Yes. So, why am I in this conversation? So I started on this path of what I call inner transformation about 15 years ago when I got into recovery for a food addiction and a drug addiction, eating disorder. And 2 significant things happened for me at that point. First is I experienced a profound spiritual awakening that freed me from my addictions and ignited in me this deep, deep hunger for spiritual growth. And the second thing that happened happened in retrospect. As I look back at those early years of my recovery and I got curious, what allowed for me to have complete freedom? Where I would look out and I would see other people and they weren't doing certain addictions, but then they traded them out for other addictions, like that game of whack-a-mole. You bop it on the head over here and then it pops up in a different form in another area. Or they would have a time of freedom and then they would relapse, or they were still struggling. They never really felt like they were fully, fully free. And so I got curious about that. And I realized that somehow I had transformed from the person that I had been. So that it wasn't that I was still struggling with food, still obsessed with food and my body, and trying to make healthy choices. It was that the version of me who woke up in the morning and said, I'm not going to eat the chocolate and the peanut butter today. And then by the afternoon, I was eating the chocolate and the peanut butter. Wasn't there. Like, I had become a person who was not addicted. And a few years later, on my evolutionary journey, we'll call it, I hit another evolutionary plateau as a Pilates studio owner. So there I am, for those of you who didn't know me back then. At the time, my life was Pilates, and it was an absolute dream of mine to have a studio. But after a few years of running the studio, something shifted for me. And I found myself getting irritated and annoyed, even with the idea of having to open up the studio in the morning. Like I was resentful. And I'll never forget being in this client session. And I thought that I was totally focused on her and what she was doing. And then all of a sudden I hear this voice in my head that says, your soul is dying. And it was like it was this total wake-up call, because it really hit me that my irritation and my annoyance and my resentment and this heaviness that I was feeling wasn't just having a bad day. It was a symptom of something deeper. And I had to get honest that I had outgrown my role as a Pilates teacher. And now being at the studio felt stifling. It felt like it was holding me back, and that there was more for me. And you'd think that that would feel inspiring, but it didn't. Because as soon as I acknowledged that to myself, I got flooded with guilt, because I didn't want to let my clients down. I'd had some clients for years, and I was good at what I did. And I was afraid that if I left, I would regret the decision. So I had all this conflict coming up, and it was really like that for a few months, feeling this like frustration and irritation, and like I was, my studio was feeling like a prison to me, but then I was feeling guilty and I was having all this fear coming up. And it really wasn't until I decided to do the inner transformation work, much like my recovery work, that something shifted in me, and I was brought to a new place inside of myself, where that ambivalence and that guilt had already been resolved. And from that new place within me, again, we're talking about an internal shift, nothing external. From that internal place inside of me, I could see the landscape clearly. And I could see that this was clearly happening for a reason. And my plan for supporting my clients in the transition just crystallized seamlessly, because I was available for it. I intuitively knew what I needed to do. It was like somehow I had become new, and I'd become someone who just had the clarity and had the capability to step into a new chapter. And I can give you many, many more examples of this from my own life, but what I want to do is give you a chance to reflect on your own life right now. So here's a question for you. What area of your life wants to find a more authentically aligned expression? Or another way of asking that is, what area of your life have you outgrown? Have you outgrown the role, the relationship, who you're being, how you're showing up? What area of your life? Write it down. And what comes up for you when you acknowledge that? Are you flooded with guilt? Does it feel exciting? Does it feel overwhelming? Does it feel scary? Just know whatever you're feeling is perfect. And also know that you're not expected to do anything right now, right? This is just an inquiry for you to start orienting yourself around, and maybe it's more than one area. I speak with a lot of women, and it's like, there's that idea of like the way that you do one thing is the way you do everything. So sometimes it's like, I just feel like there's a couple things going on in my life that are just, I've outgrown these experiences. So maybe that's important for you to acknowledge right now. But I want to come back to where we are right now in today's discussion. And that is with these 3 tools. So we're going to dive into these 3 tools as a way to support you with whatever's coming up. And as part of that, I'm also going to highlight the biggest mistakes that I see people making that really keep them stuck, so that you can start to recognize these things and shift out of them as you start applying these tools. And let me just say this before I forget, is that nothing that we talk about today is something that you have to do on your own. So if it would be supportive to you at all, I'm so happy to hop on a complimentary call with you to connect and to just help you to get clarity, help you to sort through the things that are coming up, and help you to sort of crystallize what your next steps are. So if that is something that you would like to do, know that that's available for you. I will pop a link. I'll pop a link into the chat here, but for those of you who are listening to the replay, a link to schedule a call with me will be in whatever email or post or web page you're accessing this recording from. Okay. So before we get into this first key, I want to talk about the first mistake, and that is this: overanalyzing and getting stuck in the mind. Is this you? Overanalyzing and getting stuck in the mind. I meet a lot of people who are in this place. So let's talk about what this really means. So overanalyzing and stuck in the mind, it's constantly ruminating, right? It's obsessing. It's trying to, it's fixating on fixing yourself or fixing the situation. It's being distracted. It's not being present. It's worrying. It's planning. It's essentially spinning in your head, right? And if you know this experience, and I'm guessing that a lot of people here do, because I meet a lot of people in this place, then you know that that spinning then starts producing the overwhelm and the doubt and the guilt and the confusion and the anxiety and the fear. So this is all the stuff that is going on. Who can relate to this? Raise your hand if this is you. I know if you're not, if you're listening to the recording, you can raise your hand wherever you are. I can't see you, but this is the environment that we're trying to get clarity in. This is the mental environment that we're trying to get clarity in. So no wonder it's not working, right? So if this is you, then the question becomes, well, what do we do? I meet a lot of people here, and I'm going to talk about what we need to do, but I also want to say that I get that the concept of this is easier than the application of this. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. But we need to go from spinning, right, in our heads to bringing our energy and our focus and our attention down into the body, and more specifically to ground, which is why the first key in preparing for your next step is to stop, drop, and ground. So stopping means stopping this train of thought. You notice yourself spinning and you just stop it mid-thought, whatever it is. And if you ever try this, you'll notice what I've noticed probably is that there's kind of this like part of us that feels like we need to like complete the thought. We need to complete the narrative. We need to complete the full sort of, runaway story. You actually don't. You can literally stop mid-thought, mid-sentence in your head, and you don't need to pick it up. I just heard someone say this morning, I was listening to something, and someone said, don't let your thoughts bully you around. You are bigger than your thoughts. You don't need to pick up your thoughts. That thoughts will just kind of come across your inner landscape. You don't have to pick them up. So anyway, stop. Drop means to drop your awareness into your body, out of your head, preferably down to your feet or your tailbone, whatever is an anchoring place for you, whatever place is connected to a surface like the floor or a chair. And then ground is to feel the connection between your feet and the earth. So to really let yourself be supported and held by the energy of the earth. This settles your energy, it calms your nervous system, and it gives you space to breathe. I was just speaking with a client yesterday, and she's like, I feel like I can't even breathe. I feel like I'm being squeezed. So if you ever have that experience, you feel like you're being squeezed, this is what we're talking about. Grounding, connecting, right? So this is what I want to say is that for women who are chronically up in their heads, and this used to be me, so I super get it. This idea of grounding sounds really great and is really, really challenging to apply. And so if this is something that you need support with, know that and ask for some support with this. This is something that I help my clients with. You know, I guide them through personalized groundings. I create recordings for them that are personalized to them and their needs. You know, really, like, it's like, I think sometimes we hear things and then we think we're supposed to just know how to do it. And I just want to acknowledge that this is something that a lot of people struggle with, to be out of the head and in the body. You can like maybe think about it for a split second and then you're back up in the head. And so if you need support with this, there is support available for you. But what I want to do for everyone here right now is share something that, like a little 10-second technique that you can use anywhere, anytime. And this is my kind of like, if you've got a couple seconds and you're spinning out, do this. And it's really so simple. You could do it with me right now. You just take a breath in, bring your awareness down to your feet, and just take a few seconds of feeling your feet in contact with the floor. Ideally, your feet are in contact with the floor right now. But just feeling your feet in contact with the floor, breathing in, really dropping in your awareness, noticing those subtle sensations going on at the soles of the feet. Noticing any tingling or buzzing or cramping. Noticing the temperature at the soles of the feet. Just taking one more breath, allowing all your attention just to go right there at that sensation of the soles of the feet. And then when you're ready, let yourself open back up into the space. So even just a couple of seconds of that, I don't even know if it was 10 seconds, might have been less. You might notice if you did that for even just a little bit, that already you feel a little bit more dropped into your body, a little bit more grounded, a little bit less frantic. So just imagine if you had that be a regular practice, how supportive that could be for your life. All right, so that is the first key, stop, drop, and ground. I want to get into this second big mistake because this is a doozy, and it's this. So it's weighing up your options, right? You're in a current circumstance or situation or dynamic, and it's weighing up your options from your current way of seeing and being. So I just want to say this about this mistake, is that if you are someone right now who's feeling conflicted or frustrated or guilty, doubting yourself, judging yourself, this conversation we're going to be having right now is going to explain why that's happening and why it's not your fault. Okay, so let's talk about what your current way of seeing and being really refers to. It refers to the way that you're currently thinking and feeling and believing about your situation or circumstance. So the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs you have about your situation or your circumstance, it's like your current vantage point, right? Your current way of seeing the situation, seeing yourself, seeing the other people involved, seeing the dynamic itself, and your state, your actual way of being in all of it. All right. So that is all what we're talking about here. So let's just take an example to kind of take this out of conceptual land and bring it into something that feels a little bit more tangible. So, for example, let's say that you have a partner who doesn't have the capacity to truly meet you and see you and get what you're about. Okay. So here you are with your existing thoughts and feelings and beliefs and assumptions and perspectives about your partner, about yourself, about the overall situation that you find yourself in. This is you, okay? And let's just say that what you would like is authentic engagement, affection, communication, someone who's interested in the same things you're interested in, someone who wants to grow with you. Okay? As long as you are in the place of resenting them or feeling like you're wrong for wanting more than they can really offer you, or doubting yourself, doubting your experience. Maybe you're the one with the problem, wondering if you're going crazy. Maybe this is all just in your head. Maybe you just need to go to therapy. As long as you're having all these thoughts and feelings and beliefs swirling around, nothing about the situation can transform. Nothing. We're going to talk about why in just a moment, but I really, really want to drive this home. As long as you continue to operate from your current way of seeing things and of being, you will stay stuck in the struggle and the frustration of your current circumstance. So in order to access a higher possibility, and maybe that's just having clarity around the situation, or maybe that's having the confidence to take aligned action, or the conviction about what that aligned action actually is, or maybe that higher possibility is actually feeling fulfilled, actually having, a happy resolution to the situation. Whatever that higher possibility is, in order to have it, you need a way to evolve beyond your current way of seeing things and of being. And this is why key number 2 is to elevate your way of seeing and being. Elevate your way of seeing and being. Elevating your way of seeing and being means opening to a broader and more expansive perspective that has you seeing and experiencing your circumstance from a higher altitude. For those of you who spent time in my coaching programs, you know when I talk about higher altitude, right? An inner higher altitude inside of ourselves. For example, let's go back to our previous scenario. Your partner can't meet you in the ways that your heart and your soul and your body yearn for. And you're stuck in the midst of resentment and doubt and shame and longing and desperation and rage. As long as you are there, you're stuck in a loop. You couldn't see your partner differently if you tried. And maybe you have tried. Maybe you've tried to be sympathetic, or you tried to be understanding, or you've tried to need less, right? You've tried to hold back your needs, need less. Maybe the issue is you. But then the moment you get triggered, all of those feelings and thoughts rush back to the surface, and you realize nothing's transformed. Nothing's transformed. But now imagine that you undergo an inner transformation process whereby your thoughts and feelings and beliefs dissolve, right? You experience an internal shift, and those thoughts, feelings, and beliefs dissolve. They are no longer there. Not by you saying, I'm going to let it go. I want to be really clear. That doesn't work. If you've tried it, you already know that doesn't work. But because something inside of you, beyond your mental capacity, transforms your experience. And the result is that you're no longer tethered to your old way of being and seeing. And you arrive at a higher altitude perspective, where now it's clear to you, oh my gosh, this dear person that I'm with is not a match. And it's doing both of us a disservice to stay in this. And you find yourself taking aligned action that previously from the old state was inconceivable for you to do. This is what we mean by elevating your way of seeing and being. It's being able to lift out of your previous state, your previous experience, and being brought to a higher altitude vantage point where new possibilities and potentials exist. So just take a breath into that. I know it's sort of a lofty concept, And sometimes from our current vantage point, we're like, I don't really get that. So let's talk about, how does that happen? Let's get into this a little bit deeper. Again, those of you who have spent a little bit of time in my programs or in my classes, you may have come across this before, but there's a quote from Einstein that tells us that no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. In other words, as long as you're operating from your current way of seeing things and being, i.e., your current level of consciousness, you can't solve or resolve your problem as you're facing it right now. Whatever the circumstance is, whatever the issue is, whatever you feel like you're up against, you can't solve it from this place, from this consciousness. What this is also saying is that in order to solve your problem or make possible an aligned or fulfilling outcome to your specific situation, you'll need to open into a new level of consciousness, right? And so you might be wondering, okay, well, how do I do that? How do I open into a new level of consciousness? And it's a really good question, because we can't actually, we can't move ourselves from our current level of consciousness into a higher level of consciousness, because the current level of consciousness, our current way of seeing and being, can only operate from its current way of seeing and being. It doesn't have what it takes to evolve. And so how can we access that higher possibility, that higher level of consciousness? And this is where we need what I call a bridge. We need a bridge. And so if you can imagine, a bridge takes you from your current level of consciousness to a higher or more expanded level of consciousness via a process of inner transformation. So we talked about transformation before. Again, transformation, I know I've said it a few times. I was going to remind you, it's a deliberate internal shift that modifies who we are. It's an active process, and it creates a new system, meaning that instead of trying to figure things out from within the problem as you're currently experiencing it, you're brought to a new understanding and perspective of your circumstance. And that new perspective actually alters what you see and feel and think and believe. And as a result, not only do you see things differently, but the circumstance itself actually transforms. So that it's no longer even the same thing anymore. And this is how clarity and conviction about what to do comes. I hope you're sitting there with some questions. I hope we're going to be able to dive into a great discussion, whether you're here live or whether you're going to schedule a call with me. I hope this stimulates some juicy questions and discussion for you, because it should. It really, really should. And one of those questions might be, okay, well, that sounds great. I need a bridge. Okay, so how do I get on a bridge? What does that even mean? And this is actually good news, because this is something that you can do right now. Wherever you are, you can do this one thing. And that is, get in touch with your willingness to have a new experience. Your willingness to open to a new way of seeing and being. Now, that might sound obvious to some of you, but this is an actual step. And I will say this, most people, when it comes down to it, are actually not willing. And one of the reasons why people aren't willing, because I've been there, is the implication of you stepping into a greater possibility is going to change up your life in such a way that it's too threatening to this current level of consciousness, this current way of seeing and being. And you can't imagine that you stepping through the threshold of a transformational process, that the situation would be different, that the people would be different, that your experience would be different, your experience of them would be different. You can't even imagine that. And so you just close down and you don't become willing. And I get it. I've been there so many times. But this is not a throwaway question. It's an earnest inquiry. Am I willing to have a new experience? And as you consider this, let me just say that being willing does not mean that you don't have fear. It doesn't mean that you know what it even means or looks like to be willing. Being willing is just saying, I'm open. I'm open to growing beyond my current way of seeing and being, even if I have fear, even if I don't know what that means or looks like, right? This is the definition of willing, right? And so if you are willing, if that is something you're like, you know what, actually, when I consider that, I am willing. I'm scared. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. And I don't even know what I'm saying yes to, but I'm saying yes because where I am right now feels contracting. It feels like it's binding me. It feels like it's stifling me. And I know that I'm here to be more and love more and create more in this life. And so I'm a yes for that. And if you're like, yes, I'm willing, I encourage you to just breathe that willingness into your body and let that I'm willing just settle into your cells all the way down to your toes. I'm willing. And just know that you're already activating yourself. You're already orienting yourself towards this. It's beautiful. So I want to get into this third key. And before I do, I want to talk about this third mistake. I've been here many times before too. Maybe you have as well. Relying on other people's actions to dictate and determine what to do. Okay, so moment of honesty. When it comes to your current situation, is part of you waiting for something external to happen? Like maybe work is making some changes and you're waiting to see how it plays out. Or you had a big confrontation with your partner and you're waiting to see if they change their ways, right? This is worth writing down in big block letters if you are taking notes. Other people will never make it clear for you, right? I'm getting big nods. Yes. Other people will never make it clear for you. Clarity comes from within. Clarity comes from within, and that can be a problem if you have stopped trusting yourself. Yes. And so this is why key number 3 is to regain the ability to trust yourself. And how do we do that? Good and nice to say that, right? How do we do that? Truth bomb. This is a truth bomb here for you right now. The truth is, you don't have a trust problem. You have a fear problem. You fear making the wrong decision. You fear the implications of making a decision, right? We just talked about that. You fear hurting others. You fear letting others down. And probably a gajillion other fears, right? You know, depending on your certain situation, I'm sure you could be flooded. If I asked you to, you could write down 20 fears right now. And all that fear is drowning out your intuition. So that part of you deep down might know what's true, but then another part keeps second guessing you and casting doubt on your experience. Can you relate to this? Is this happening for you? Do you find yourself here? This is super important. It's super important because this is why I say that the key to trusting yourself is actually in dissolving your fears. dissolving your fears. Because when your fears fall away, they no longer obscure what's true. And this means not only can you see clearly, but you also have the conviction and the capacity to take action that aligns with that truth. Because I talk to people all the time who can tell me, excuse me, tell me the truth they see. But when it comes to action, there's a lot of layers. And I'm not making it wrong. I know we all have our timing but that's a piece, right? And so it really comes down to this piece of dissolving fears. And you'll just find yourself taking aligned action. And you might find yourself sad about the action you have to take. You're human, right? It's totally natural to feel sad, but it doesn't replace the fact that you know it's the right thing for you to be doing. And that is freedom. It's such a different experience to know in your heart and your soul and your body and your mind, this is the right course of action. And it's going to hurt some hearts, including mine. That's freedom, even though it hurts. What's not free is I feel bad and I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, and that's not free, right? I mean, this is why dissolving fears, excuse me, is a key part. I have a little cough today. Get my cough drop. Hold on. Moment of peaceful silence as you wait for this to kick in. I think we're good. I think we're going to be okay. So this really is a key part of what I do with my clients, because this is the piece that will create the clarity for you. So if you're sitting there going, I just need to get clear, or the word that I hear a lot from people is I need to feel confident. And I think confidence is sort of a code word for people, or like, I need to trust myself and feel the conviction to mobilize into action. Right. And so if that's the place that you find yourself in, then this is what you want to be paying attention to. What am I afraid of? And this is the piece that's going to be the most transformational for you. I remember working with a client who was both in this unfulfilling, miserable place in her relationship and in her work. And she worked a lot. So it was like her entire life was in these two dead-end dynamics. And she knew for a long time in her heart, and she was able to verbalize it. She knew for a long time that she had outgrown both dynamics, right? Both role and relationship. But she wasn't ready to do anything about it. There was too much fear around money, around security, around trust, right? Trusting herself, trusting God. And so she was spinning. And I think we can all relate to this, right? And you're sort of like weighing up. You're in a no growth situation, you're in a no fulfillment situation, but you're kind of still in a safe place. We all know that kind of dynamic. And she really, really wanted to be able to be brought to a new place. And so we started doing that inner transformation work together. And she began dissolving these fears one by one. And it was like this veil got thinner and thinner. The veil of doubt, the veil of confusion got thinner and thinner. And then it just completely lifted. And I remember meeting her at a session one day, and she was like, Oh, I put in my notice today. It was just like, she just already done. I put in my notice today. And then we spent that session where she was telling me about her plans to transition out of her relationship. And it was like, this stuff was not available before. And then she just found herself in action. She was just, it was there, it was available for her. And, that's the kind of thing that I see. And that's really the piece that I hold for people, is that as long as you're sort of like trying to figure it out from this current perspective, it's just so challenging and overwhelming. But when you get brought to a new place of clarity inside of yourself, it's like, it feels so clear. It feels so clear. And so my question for you is, if you had the clarity and the confidence and the conviction to move into a more authentically aligned place, what would that feel like? Not even what would you do, right? Because that can feel too heavy. What would that feel like? And I want you to imagine now, because it's really hard for us to not think about that question from our current level of consciousness. But let's just pretend, let's make believe that we actually are in a higher altitude level of consciousness where you have the clarity, you have the confidence, you have the conviction to move into whatever is next for you, right? For that woman, what was next for her was transitioning out of those dynamics. That might not be what's true for you. Doesn't mean that the next chapter has to be walking away from something else. I want to be really clear on that. But imagine this, no doubt, right? No more doubt, no more second guessing, no more overwhelm, just clarity and the capacity. How would that feel? Maybe enlivening, expansive, empowering? How would that feel? How would that feel? And last question here, are you willing to become the version of you who is ready for a more authentically aligned life? Are you ready? If the answer is yes, that's all you need to get started. Truly, you don't need to know what to do or what that means or what that looks like. Just deepen your heart from that earnest place, that innocent, earnest place. Yes, I want that. I want that. Without the cynicism, without the yeah, but just allowing yourself to have this pure, childlike moment of, I want that. And so if you're there, just take a breath. Take a breath into that. And that earnest, innocent place inside of you that is bursting for more life and more love and more expression and more creation. Just know that part of you is so true and real. And if you're ready to honor it, it's going to be ready to meet you. It is. So what did we talk about today? So today we talked about how to navigate your circumstance in an entirely new way. What it takes to gain clarity and conviction and confidence to step into a new experience of your life. And we talked about the one quality you can access right now to make all of this possible, which is your willingness. And so I want to acknowledge you for getting this far in this conversation, because if you're still here, it means that you really are ready for something new, and that is something to celebrate, really, really celebrate. And if it would be helpful to get some support with your specific next steps, to drop in, have a conversation with yours truly, I would be so honored to. I invite you to schedule a call with me. You can go to private call with divinity.youcanbook.me. It's not an @ symbol, it's a .youcanbook.me. Again, I will drop that link into the chat, and then that link will be wherever you're accessing this recording from, webpage, email, post. And, don't be shy, because on this path of growth, of evolution, of expansion, we all know that it is not a straight upward trajectory. Fears come up and blocks come up, and the landscape itself changes. Right? It totally changes. And so when you have support, when you have guidance, when you have something to lean into, it really doesn't have to be hard. It really, really doesn't have to be hard. So thank you for sharing this time with me and taking this time for you. And I look forward to connecting with you. So we are going to transition into those folks who are here live, and we're going to stop the share and we're going to stop the recording.